There is no red, white, or blue in this country. The only color that matters is green, because we live in the United Corporations of America. Greetings, greetings, salutations. Jordan, Chariton, Ashley Bishop.
Hello.
Live from the mothership, Status Coup. It is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025 in the United Corporations of America. Chris Garrett, if you're watching, we got, since one of our viewers designed these fantastic Status Coup polos, we got to get Ashley
that's
some.
so nice.
'Cause
I had no idea.
I didn't know. I don't know where they come from either. So we got to get Ashley some. Big breaking news that the great Ashley Bishop, our new reporter, landed for us today. We were going to do a show on something different, but then this afternoon we kind of caught wind that there was quite a lot of activity going on in Michigan, a state that I have covered extensively. This morning, well, why am I describing it? You could share what happened, Ashley, since you broke the story. Tell us a little bit more before we show the video.
Yeah, so this morning, apparently, there were FBI and local police raids on three residences in Michigan. So the raids were all on students who were involved with the pro-Palestinian protest movement at the University of Michigan. So I spoke with someone who is at, I think it's Ypsilanti, I think is the name of
Ypsilanti, yeah.
Ypsilanti. Okay, not familiar with Michigan, but I guess a residence in Ypsilanti, where FBI and police came to their door very early this morning. They broke down the door to gain entry to the residence, and they raided the house of the students with police dogs. I guess they definitely took some spray paint, as we'll see in this video. They took some spray paint, potentially some papers, potentially some electronics. Not sure on that yet, though.
Those dangerous fucking pro-Palestinian students with their spray paint and Manila folders. Oh my God! Take cover
over there.
Yeah,
very dangerous.
It's really, really alarming because, well, first of all, before we get into any of this, I forgot. The biggest breaking news, Ashley. Do you know what the biggest breaking news is?
I don't.
In 2.5 hours, Status Coup member call. That is massive, massive news. We're doing our monthly members call. Ashley will be joining us unless shows want to have her on for this great story she broke. So 7:30 tonight, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. If you are a Status Coup member, join us. You will get the link. Colin will come on in a little bit and tell you how you'll get the link. But it's a video call. It's not on Zoom, but something like Zoom. We're going to start at 7:30 Eastern. We're going to talk about this story and many other things. We always give our members sneak peeks of what's coming down the pike. So there's still time. If you're not yet a Status Coup member, sign up right now. Lickety split. StatusCoup.com/join. StatusCoup.com/join. You can become a member, $5 a month, and we'll remind you throughout the show. Okay, smash that like button. Also, share this live stream. Before we show the video, and we're about to have a guest on too, an independent journalist from Michigan who knows the details. Before we set this up, I think it's really important. Every show, and we have covered Trump extensively because I think he's a fascist and he's doing fascist things. But to be clear, there's also fascist things going on under Democratic control. I don't want to do a false equivalency, but what we're about to show you was spearheaded by the Democratic Attorney General of Michigan, Attorney General Dana Nessel. I'll give you the backstory and history on her later because there's plenty to tell. She is very, very instrumental in the Flint water cover-up and letting the criminals off the hook there. We'll share more details on that later. But they went to pro-Palestinian students homes, raided their homes, University of Michigan students, as far as we know, for no reason other than they've been very active in university protests. Let's, before we bring on the guests, let's show you this really, really alarming video that was leaked to Ashley. And I want to be clear, the first 13, 14 seconds, that's not exclusive to us. So the first 13, 14 seconds, you will see, I believe it was FBI, could have been Michigan police, ramming the door down of this University of Michigan student. That was kind of going around, so that's not something we got exclusively. The rest of the video we have exclusively of showing the police, the FBI. It's like a swarm of 12 to 20 FBI police agents. For what? We don't know. Apparently to seize cans of spray paint and manila folders. So we're going to play the video. It's about 3.5 minutes, and then we'll bring on our guest.
No search warrant was provided.
Show me your hands out. Hands up.
Back this way. Got a bunch of stuff. You got some milk crates for what? Fucking potion making supplies?
Some paint! It's fucking paint! Oh my god! Spray paint! Wow!
How much are we paying y'all for that?
You guys gonna paint some pictures? Spray paint!
Oh no.
Are they working scared? Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta put that paint away real quick. That's what you found was paint! You found paint!
It's on the wrong car. Fucking paint on shit. Y'all are burning me.
There's also envelopes. The first one they had was envelopes. There was like papers, like paper and then
Flyers?
like a yellow padded, manila envelopes that like mailing stuff.
You think they would have covered stuff up with
I don't think they know what art is. I think this one looks like she's about to take a pee on the back.
on the day-to-day basis,
That's just state art and
Make sure you protect that paint. Let's get the license plate of this guy.
This cop's punisher patch. What are you punishing? Little 18-year-olds with little twig arms? You're real tough.
The blue line.
Oh yeah, the thin blue line. Oh,
That
all
means
right.
that everything they've seen here.
Oh. We have kinetically secured the perimeter.
Oh, they got more stuff.
A bunch of unmarked vehicles.
That's the crowbar they brought. They just got to use it on the door.
They're gonna use it on an immigrant later.
Yeah. We remember this one tattoo right here. This one's tattoo on her arm.
Yeah, you do care.
You should quit your
Yeah,
job.
you fucking do care.
You should quit your
I
job if you
fucking
want to be a
suck.
good person. You're gonna be separating families next?
Oh, they're doing it now. This is what it is. This is just part of the whole thing.
Oh, that's what they like to do, huh?
This is a practice.
Look at them.
This is the drill. Y'all are running a drill. Do much worse shit. If y'all get to go down to El Salvador and kill some people. Dude. Oh, okay. Just like,
So, SEAL Team 6 level entry into the home. And to be clear, that's video of one of the raids. There were two others that we know of in other Michigan towns. From everything we know, these were all University of Michigan students who were active in the pro-Palestine protests against the Gaza genocide. The search warrants, we believe there were search warrants issued by Attorney General Dana Nessel's office, whose office has not confirmed, shockingly, that the recipients of these raids were students who protested against the Gaza genocide. For more information, we want to bring on independent journalist based in Michigan, Wali Khan. How you doing, Wali?
Good, good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So let's start with, as far as I know, the majority, the bulk, the heaviest period of protests across college campuses was last year. I know, including at University of Michigan. I know there was recently something at University of Michigan, Colin, if we have that short video, over trying to reinstate a student employee who was fired over So that was a short video basically showing a protest at University of Michigan to try and reinstate a student employee who was fired, we believe, because he attended a pro-Palestinian protest like a year ago. I don't know the full details, but what I'm confused about, we did reach out, Ashley reached out to the Attorney General's office. Why is this happening now?
Right. So tomorrow is going to be the court case for, let me set the scene for you. Tomorrow will be the court case where they're going to see what's going to happen with that case, where 11 students were charged with felonies for the encampments. And, that's spearheaded by Dana Nessel. But I want to kind of point your attention to an investigation The Guardian did in October of 2024. It basically showed that, it kind of raised questions about conflicts of interest. Typically, when there is a criminal charge being issued, it's from local counties. But the Board of Regents from the University of Michigan, which is kind of like the Board of Trustees or any school board, they tapped Dana Nessel because they felt like she was more likely to issue charges. And so that's what we're dealing with here. The investigation showed that so far, Nessel's office has charged 85% of the protesters who were arrested for last year. And in comparison,
I just want to, so the audience knows, because they might not know what you're talking about.
Right.
Colin, we have the article. Michigan, this is from September. Michigan Attorney General charges 11 pro-Palestinian protesters at University of Michigan. All of the protesters charged by the state's Attorney General were pro-Palestinian. AG Nessel has filed criminal charges against 11 pro-Palestinian protesters at University of Michigan, alleging that several of them used, quote, physical force to counter police officers clearing a tent encampment. One of the protesters was charged with ethnic intimidation after he allegedly attacked a pro-Israel rally. Obviously, this has been very controversial, not just in Michigan, but around the country, that she would charge protesters on what kind of seems like a lot of flimsy evidence.
right. I mean, I'm also pointing out that she was tapped to be the prosecutor for this as Attorney General, and that's outside the norm. In comparison to that 85% of people being charged for those arrested at encampments, Washington County only has 10%. So that is a huge difference. And so when we're looking, and I've also chased Dana Nessel down when she's giving speeches at the Indivisible protest or 5051, while she's being cheered on. Are you going to change your mind on charging, these kids with felonies? But, they've been completely silent on this. And as you can see from like the existing reporting, her office is just not saying anything except that they executed search warrants and we saw that with our own eyes on these videos.
Well, I want to address the elephant in the room. She could say I'm anti-Semitic if she wants. I happen to be Jewish, so fuck her. She's Jewish.
Hmm.
Sh As far as I know, her son goes to a Michigan university and is involved with
Yeah.
one of the Jewish groups. Nothing wrong with
So
that. But
yeah.
this has been controversial because people have basically alleged that she is very pro-Israel and that she is essentially targeting the protesters because of her Zionism, basically.
Yeah, last year, Rashida Tlaib, she said that, Dana Nessel charging these kids with felonies was just unfair. And in turn, Nessel said that Tlaib was being anti-Semitic. And I think it just gives you an idea of where she's at. And besides her son, Zach Nessel, who goes to Michigan State University and is at one point was the president of the College Democrats here at Michigan State University, the biggest uh, Democrat college chapter in the nation, I would like to add. And he just went on Birthright last year. There's photos of him eating donuts on some pier. So I guess
Birth,
you can.
for those that don't know, Birthright is like the free trip to Israel that Jewish people could go on. I think it was funded by Sheldon Adelson when he was alive. I admit, I went on it back in the day. I didn't know the whole thing. I just, it's a free trip. But that's what Birthright is. Go on.
Yeah. So, and just her whenever you go to a Dana Nessel event now, she runs away. No matter what you try to ask her, she'll run away because she's been confronted with the fact that she accepts donations from many of the regents. I believe 6 out of 8 of the regents of the University of Michigan. And those are the ones who tapped her to run this prosecution game. I mean, it's becoming a circus right now. I mean, tomorrow's the court case, and this is an escalation, I think. So I think what's happening right now is just another example of Israel owning the US or owning Michigan in this case.
Ashley, obviously, what I'm about to reference is much different. But I remember when I was at Standing Rock, you had Republican governors, North Dakota oil police, as I like to call them, charging Native Americans, their non-Native allies, with inciting riots for showing up to protests, criminal trespassing for protesting on Native land. This kind of seems similar because what Wali's referring to, the 11 protesters who were charged with, she basically charged them with forced entry, which sounds kind of in the same ballpark to me as inciting a riot. I mean, you could say the same thing about the civil rights movement if you wanted to back in the 1960s, forced entry. So it just seems like Nessel here, again, I could be wrong. Maybe they have something criminal on these people. I very much doubt it. But it seems to me we can't criticize Republican politicians who target free speech and peaceful protesters, but give a Democratic attorney general. By the way, let's not give Governor Gretchen Whitmer a pass. She is the governor of Michigan. She should probably say something about this. Your thoughts, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. It's insane. And the other student that I was speaking to earlier today, who again wants to remain anonymous, was saying, when I had asked her what she kind of thinks are the motivations for this outside of, just general repression. She had said that, she kind of echoed what you said, Wally, that she is worried that there could be some kind of they're trying to add information to pre-existing court cases, create new court cases, that kind of thing. And then when asked about what that could look like, they had said, we don't really know. We don't really know. And the thing that was worrying them the most is that it feels to them like no one has done anything wrong outside of go to these protests. That's it. That is the only thing that is kind of swimming around their heads as far as like what could a motivation be. It's just this. So there's, I can't imagine the kind of like shadow that would be following after you if you have to continue going to school and just moving about the community, feeling like I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm, just standing up for something that should be a very cut and dry issue. And instead, you are met with, FBI raids at your residence or residence of people that you know. It's just, it's all insane.
And I'd like to remind we got almost 400 people watching. So reminder, smash that like button, share this live stream. Another reminder, in about 2 hours, we'll be doing our members only video call. So if you're not yet a Status Coup member, what the fuck are you doing? Sign the fuck up. statuscoup.com/join. We're out there on the ground. We're breaking stories on the investigative beat. You could support this work, which includes hiring Ashley. She broke this story today for $5 a month. All right, Wali, another elephant in the room.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of these universities, I'd love to know more about University of Michigan, have a lot of donors. A lot of those donors happen to be Jewish. We know Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots football team. He was, breathing fire at these college campus protests. He was pulling his money from universities that he didn't deem cracking down enough on these pro-Palestinian protests. Other universities have had a lot of donor pressure, basically not to allow these protests that they have deemed anti-Semitic. Can you kind of talk about University of Michigan in particular? Has there been a lot of pressure from donors to kind of shut this stuff down?
Right. I think we often hear pressure from donors, but let me illustrate to you what that really means, because that's a little bit abstract. For example, a Democratic donor and School of Information board member in 2023 faced no consequences after allegedly physically assaulting Arab American students, along with her husband, who is a university donor. They gave $26,000 to Nessel. And then Nessel has also received significant campaign donations from pro-Israel state politicians, organizations, and university donors who over the last year have very vocally criticized protests for human rights in Gaza. The other thing is many of the leadership of the board members of the University of Michigan are donors for a Nessel. So pressure in that sense, financial pressure. They donate a lot of money to Dana Nessel. That 26,000 was just um, one person. She also received $25,000 from the Michigan Jewish Democratic Caucus, which was founded and is partially funded by State Rep Noah Arbit, who is a very outspoken pro-Israel politician and a very good friend of Nessel. So he recently labeled student protesters sick cowards. This is what we're dealing with, right? Is this just this miasma of, like, they're all living in this bubble where they see this as anti-Semitism. When you look at a big picture, right? The person that she replaced, which was the Washington County prosecutor, Eli, his last name starts with a K. I can't come up with the name. He is Jewish, and he refused to charge dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters, and that's what we're dealing with here, right? Like, we're dealing with somebody who is complicit in charging these kids and perpetuating this idea that you are betraying your Jewishness if you're pro-Palestinian, or if you're for justice and against apartheid.
Right. I also think, Colin, can we just show the video? Not the whole thing, but I just want to show the first part one more time.
No search warrant was provided.
Show me your hands now. Hands up.
Okay. You can take it down. So I want to point out a few things here. And again, credit to Ashley because she broke this story, and I'm just bigfooting right now in asking questions, but she'll get it. The guy had a gun. I don't know if that was a Michigan State trooper or a FBI. FBI was involved with this raid. They're ramming in the door, and he's got a gun in his hand, and he says, "Show me your hands." I mean, think of the last decade or two. That could end really badly, really quickly, right? I don't know who these students were. I don't know if they were white, black, brown, what they were. But the fact that they are ramming the door in for student activists, I mean, unless Dana Nessel has cold hard evidence that they are a threat to the community, that they committed violent crimes, that right there, I would say sue the fuck out of the Attorney General's office. But the fact that they're going in with guns, show me your hands, it just seems, I don't know, Wally, I mean, I have experience with Dana Nessel that I'll get to later. It seems very unnecessary and kind of dangerous, because that situation could, I mean, what if one of the people had their hands in their pocket or somewhere like that?
And not to mention, right, like, I also want to make clear that ICE wasn't there, because a lot of people were spreading rumors about ICE being there. But the Attorney General's office confirmed that they weren't, and there's no video of them. But one thing is, and they're all American citizens, the ones who were harassed today. But one thing I just kind of want to bring up is that, like, these are the same kids that at this age, they remember Oxford High shooting or the Michigan State University shooting, right? Like, like, and they have been so many stories of people going through both those shootings. And I don't know, it's just so unnecessary and traumatizing. Nobody should have a gun pointed at them. And for them to, laugh while they're bringing out the spray cans, and it's like, what is the point? Like, what is the end goal of this? Like, I've always wanted to know what that cop was thinking, right? That, I mean, do they think it looks badass? I don't know. But of course, it's unprofessional, it's dangerous, and it just ends up being a shit show.
Right. I want to, Ashley, do you want to jump in?
I mean, I don't have any questions. I was just kind of reflecting on the fact that, like, if someone knocks on my door, I immediately am like, oh shit, who is there? Why is someone knocking at my door? I cannot imagine how terrified those students must have been. And again, like, we all live in this world. We know what's going on right now. If you've been engaged in protest, you're probably terrified. If the police are at your door in this current climate, you probably have a good sense of why. And like you commented on earlier, what could be the potential consequence of that? So, I mean, it could be someone being dragged off. It could be some kind of violence. I don't know. It's just really horrible for those students. And we are in a bad state here.
And I want to, for those folks that are watching, I want to kind of give you a backdrop. And Wally, I know you might know some of this because you've been reporting in Michigan. Dana Nessel, okay, she's the Attorney General. She's kind of like a beloved MSNBC resistance liberal. So sorry if I'm triggering any, former MSNBC viewers if you're watching. But MSNBC loves her. She happens to be a lesbian, which I don't really care about. But she spoke at the Democratic National Convention and told Trump, "You'll take my wedding ring over my cold, dead hands." Great. However, she's got a history with corruption. You could read all about it in my book that I published last year. I have extensively covered the Flint water crisis and cover up for almost a decade now. She came in there, as Wally was referencing donors to her and donors affecting things. As there was an ongoing criminal investigation into the people who poisoned Flint, she fired the special prosecutor. She fired the chief investigator who, based on my reporting, were actually going after the Republican governor of Michigan and almost charging him with involuntary manslaughter for the poisoning of Flint. They also dropped financial charges related to the fraudulent privatization scheme responsible for poisoning Flint. She ended up firing competent prosecutors and investigators, appointing an incompetent prosecutor who just happened to donate a lot of money to her attorney general's campaign. This woman had never even tried a trial before a jury, yet Nessel put her in charge of one of the biggest criminal investigations in the history of Michigan. I could go on. She sabotaged the investigation. to the point that the Michigan Supreme Court threw out the remaining criminal charges, and now there very likely will never be any convictions for the people who poisoned Flint. She also is covering up the financial fraud that caused the Flint water crisis, which involves JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. All the details are in my book. I'm not trying to shamelessly plug, but if you're interested, get my book, We the Poisoned.
I'm reading it right now. It's good.
Thank you, sir. I set that all up because if you were the attorney general, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're kind of responsible for, like, executing the law. We're sitting here, rightly so, talking about Trump breaking the law, Trump doing away with due process for both legal American citizens who are here legally and those who are not born here but were here legally, and doing away with due process even for undocumented people who are entitled to their day in court. So we can't have it both ways. I'm sorry if you're watching and you just want to, focus on Trump 24/7. We cover Trump, but we cannot ignore that this kind of stuff has happened under Democratic leaders. The NYPD, the New York prosecutors were throwing the book at Columbia students. Those are Democrats. Attorney General Nessel is a Democrat. What is she charging? What did she truly charge these 11 pro-Palestinian students with? I didn't see any evidence that they violently forced their way onto anything. And if anything, that's a misdemeanor. She's throwing significant charges against them. Can you kind of talk about, Wali? It seems like she's got a different standard for who she charges and for what.
Yeah, so she's charging these kids with felonies, right? She's charging them with resisting arrest, and that's a felony in the state of Michigan, assaulting a police officer. But if you look at the videos that emerged out of the University of Michigan encampments, you can very clearly see the police instigating. And that's not the only time they have violently, started a fight. I'm not talking about the students, I'm talking about the police. On October 7th of last year, on the anniversary of the Al-Aqsa flood operation, the cops sprayed 77 people with pepper spray, and including 5 journalists, and me included. It was horrible. They sprayed one of their own. And the other thing is, when it comes to Nessel, she's charging these protesters at a much higher rate than what is usually normal, which is around 10% in that county, compared to the 85% that she's doing right now. And a lot of the protesters that I've spoken to are willing to get arrested, but when you tell them about, like, oh, you might get a felony, they get a little bit worried. I think this is the beginning of, well, ever since she's charged them, but tomorrow there'll be a hearing. Um, this is kind of the beginning of this kind of stress test. What can she get away with? If there will be a precedent of whether these kids are actually going to lose in court, and whether or not they can be convicted of these felonies. And I think that sets a very dark idea that if they can be jailed or imprisoned for these protests, I mean, there's no difference between Michigan and some red state now, right? And this is something that you've brought up in your reporting all the time. I mean, it's scary. I mean, just breaking down a door and you're just a college student.
And I'd like to point out, Ashley, this is in your report. By the way, Colin, if we could show it, everybody go read Ashley's report in our Substack. It has the video, but also more details to what happened. You could sign up for our Substack for free. And when you sign up to our Substack, you not only get great investigative stories when we break it, but you also get get an email when we go live. You get an email when we're live covering a protest on the ground, all that good stuff. So sign up for our Substack. You could sign up for free, statuscoup.substack.com. But I want to point out, I mean, usually when you're going all SEAL Team 6 and ramming into somebody's home, it's because you've convinced the judge that there might be things in their home that are evidence of some type of crime. I mean, in the video we got, They're taking paint cans, like spray paint. They're taking manila folders. They didn't exactly find, like, Timothy McVeigh's stockpile there. So it just seems like this was all for show. And I gotta say, I didn't know this until we spoke, Wali. The fact that they're doing this today, right before those 11, the previous 11 who were arrested, are going to court, it sure seems like they waited till the night before to, up the ante, so to speak, on targeting more students.
Right. Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. At 14A1 District Court, Tahrir Umish, which is the coalition of pro-Palestinian organizations in Ann Arbor, they have a call to action that they published yesterday. And it says, pack the court this Thursday at 2:30 p.m. in solidarity with the encampment activists facing felony charges from State AG Dana Nessel for demanding divestment and an end to Umish's complicity in genocide. And, so this happening right before, you're right. I mean, she's upping the ante. This is an escalation. And I'd be curious to see whether or not in the coming days, as these court proceedings go by, whether there will be any more instances of police violence and state overreach.
Ashley, I'd love your thoughts, because to me, obviously, let's remind people what the focus is here. There's an ongoing U.S.-funded genocide in Gaza. I mean, I got to be honest, I look away because I get queasy. I know I shouldn't. I'm still seeing videos on Twitter of just famished Palestinian kids dying from famine and just their bones sticking out. It's horrific. I mean, that's what this is about. A U.S.-funded genocide, which we have funded in many other places than just Gaza. But I want to point out, this is, to me, much bigger, Ashley, than the Palestinian protests. Because what if there is a God, what if we have a general strike in this country? Well, there'd probably be a big proportion of it would be on college campuses, would be at the steps of capitals, would be outside banks. Well, if they're going to start, ramming the doors in of pro-Palestinian protesters, do we really think they're not going to do that to the lead organizers for economic strikes? I mean, look what they did up in Canada when they were protesting the vaccines and stuff. I don't necessarily agree with what they were protesting. I think they had a right to protest. But when they shut down the bridge between Canada and Michigan, oh my God, all hell broke loose. And Canada cracked down very violently on those protesters. So I think whatever you think of the Palestine-Israel issue, and most people watching here, want this genocide to stop, to me, this is beyond a slippery slope, because for other big protests that could affect the real rulers of this country, the donors, you'd think hey, this is just a test run. They will start barging in, ramming through the doors of all the organizers of that, and they'll stick whatever charges they have to on them to try and shut it down, Ashley.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, clearly this is, as Wally said, a sort of test case for what they can get away with as far as charging pro-Palestinian students. But you're right. Like, whatever happens here is also going to be a sort of marking point for how we are going to move forward as far as other kinds of protests. So climate protesters, whatever happens here, we can expect to see climate protesters also treated the same way. And then, like you said, if somehow we wound up with a general strike or something like that, of course, we're going to see more of the same there. And if they can get away with, sort of clear, like, anyone who's going to be involved with the general strike is probably involved with the pro-Palestinian protest movement right now. So if they can clear out these people, these organizers, the people who are most involved, they can actually make it easier for themselves if anything happens down the road. So I think it's, again, it's really, it's dangerous in more than one way, because it doesn't just affect these particular protests and what happens to these students. It also affects what happens in the future, because they're the people who are going to be involved. And it's really, I think, we've seen some bigger protests lately. There's certainly been stuff happening in the city. A lot of these things have only happened because of the infrastructure that was set up by the pro-Palestinian protest movement over the last year and a half. There's no way that a lot of these bigger protests could have happened without that network already in place. So if you start to dismantle that, you guarantee that you can't organize, another big like hands-off protest, that we will say, like, it was filled with a lot of, resistance libs and those kind of people, but it still was, resting on that infrastructure. So I think it's dangerous in all of those different ways.
And Wally, if you'll allow me a quick public service announcement. Welcome new Status Coup members, Anthony, Milton, and Tulasi. I hope I pronounced your name right, Tulasi. We are now T-minus little over hour and a half away from our members only call, which is at 7:30 Eastern time. So if you're a Status Coup member, Colin, I don't know how to do this. Tell everyone how they get the link. I'm bad at this.
So if you're on the website, you'll a member through our website, StatusCoup.com, you'll just get an email through your email that you signed up with. If you don't see it, check your spam. And if then you don't see it by close to the time that starts at 7:30 Eastern, just send an email to info@StatusCoup.com. And everyone else, if you're on YouTube, just check your YouTube feed and it'll pop up there. Same with Patreon, it'll pop up in your feed. And everyone else, just check your email, and the email is right there. If you guys have any issues, getting the link to join.
What about Substack people?
They'll be getting the email as well.
Okay, awesome. So sign up, very important. We are trying to grow, and we're going to have some juicy announcements. Well, I don't know about juicy, but we'll have some announcements on the members call about our next steps. All right. Wally, I have to also ask, because there's another figure in Michigan politics who kind of, seems to be getting a little pass here. The media loves this person. There's slobbering profile pieces. Is Governor Gretchen Whitmer available for comment? Is she the janitor of Michigan or the governor of Michigan? Because they like to pretend that the governor and the attorney general are independent of one another. But I happen to know from my previous reporting, Whitmer and Nessel talk. Whitmer is already maneuvering to run for president, get the Democratic nomination. Does she have anything to say about this kind of targeting of people's free speech rights?
See, that's the thing. I've been saying this as a journalist to a bunch of my other colleagues. I'm like, why, she stopped taking regular interview requests ever since the New Yorker and did a profile piece with her on her private jet. And it's frustrating too, because like on one hand you have Whitmer constantly going in front of young crowds and they go crazy for her, right? Like they really like Whitmer. It's like the most like slightly trendy resistance lib kind of aesthetic, and it's frustrating because there's so much like Dana Nessel isn't known just for cracking down on pro-Palestine folks or being instrumental in letting people get away with poisoning an entire city full of black people. She's also really notorious for exonerating cops who shoot black people for no reason. Like when I was in my freshman year studying in Michigan, I remember one of the police departments here shot a black man in the back a bunch of times just because he was wearing a ski mask. It was a racist 911 call. And she exonerated the cops and slapped a ton of felony charges on the kid who got shot. So what Ashley was saying is entirely accurate, and I would take that one step further, saying that if something were to happen to you, i.e., a cop shoots you with that gun that was out in that video, nobody's they'd probably charge you posthumously. And and for Whitmer, she hasn't said anything about this. It's really frustrating too because she'll rally against right wing thought and the Trumpism, but she won't check the fascism happening in her own party, right? Like, forget the fact that they're supposed to be independent. I feel like everybody dances around it, but they, of course, they talk. They're from the same party, and for her to not really care, and it's just disappointing. And ever since she published her book, Whitmer, that is, everybody's been talking about a presidential campaign in the near future. But I think that she's just making the same mistake the Harris campaign did, the Biden campaign did, and it'll be a shit show, and there'll be more of this.
Right. And before we let you go, Wali, could we just ask? I mean, you talk to students all over the place,
Mhm.
you know, Michigan State,
Yeah.
University of Michigan. Can you kind of give us inside kind of those discussions? What's kind of the feeling? Obviously,
Right.
people need to be nervous because it's not just like students who are Americans. There's also foreign students who are involved with these protests, who I'm sure are nervous based on what Trump is doing. Can you kind of talk about how are students you're talking to reacting to particularly what happened today?
Um, it's interesting. Yesterday, I interviewed one of the students who was arrested at Michigan State University for the protest they held at the administrative building, and they were trespassed and handcuffed, and they were released. But I interviewed someone in depth yesterday who was arrested, and she gave me the sense that people are getting more comfortable with the idea of getting arrested and resisting legally, because they're starting to realize that no matter what happens, if they get arrested, a lot of the fines, say for like misdemeanors for example, can be crowdfunded, right? Like, that there is support for the Palestinian movement broadly among young people. um but people are starting to get a little tired because the encampments felt to them like they were breaking a new frontier in protesting, because that protest was, it was fought on, you can't have your tent out. You can sit down and not have your tents out, but if you have your tents out, will beat the shit out of you, right? Like, there was a switch there that they hadn't felt since maybe Black Lives Matter, that uprising. But maybe they were too young at the time and they were may not have been out. But I think that's what's kind of happening, that there is this splinter. Like, a lot of them are not going to the Indivisible or 5051 protests because it's under an organization that is Zionist, openly Zionist. And they don't want to see all of this mainstream protest be a train towards the Democrats in the next election. So there's an idea that they're not being represented and they need to do more dire things to feel represented. And that's kind of the sense that I'm getting. On the flip side, you have a lot of international students stepping back ever since Trump became president. Um, a lot of them are graduating and they're going to do their grad school, maybe, or they're going to go back to their country, or they want to stay. Um, Either way, they're not participating as much because they're worried that they'll have their visa revoked, or they'll be arrested and have to pay fines that they can't afford. So there is a chilling effect, but by and large, I think people are increasingly angry about this. And I wonder really what's next in terms of what their protest is going to look like, because I know yesterday Yale had put up an encampment again that lasted a few hours, and I kind of wonder if that's going to happen again under the Trump administration.
What a mess. We should point out these students whose homes were raided were handcuffed, and then it seems once bystanders came there, they were quickly released. So again, they were raided, but they weren't like arrested or charged with anything. So it makes you kind of wonder what's going on here. You know, we're talking about due process with Trump, but like, for example, if the attorney general's office had like legitimate concerns or wanted to investigate these people, they could have just reached out to the university and, or legal counsel and said, we'd like to talk to them. there's ways of approaching it where you don't have to go in SEAL Team 6 with a battering ram. So we'll see what happens. But I think, folks, the name of the game here, we got to walk and chew gum at the same time. I know there's a lot of channels who are just Trump, Trump, Trump. Every video is Trump. I get it, because what Trump is doing is fascism, and you have to cover it like the house is on fire. But I do think we could walk and chew gum at the same time, because remember, before Trump 2.0, there was a lot of fascist things going on in this country from both parties. Because at the end of the day, power and fascism, you know, I think a lot of people think of fascism in terms of like the 1930s and, you know, strongmen and, you know, the type of fascism that involves, you know, genocide. But there's also corporate fascism. You know, there's a lot of different layers of fascism, and they don't all involve death camps. That's the one, obviously, throughout history we think of and, you know, detest the most. But there's a lot of fascism baked into America because corporations and the state merged a long time ago. So we have to keep our vigilance both on Trump, but also fascism being enabled by supposedly the opposition party. Wali, anything else you want to say and tell people how they could find your work?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, but mostly Instagram, Wali_talks, WALI_TALKS. And all I want to add is, you know, turn up if there's an emergency notice out. Any of these organizations, you know, they'll usually send out a notice if people are getting arrested. I've seen people get de-arrested because of crowds resisting on behalf of that person being arrested. I mean, obviously, don't get yourself killed if you're not too gung-ho about it, but you know, do your best, turn up, be there for whoever is being arrested, and stay safe.
Thank you, kind sir. We'll stay
Thank
in
you.
touch.
Take care.
So again, and we'll publish the video separately so you could watch the video that Ashley obtained. Again, it's about 3.5 minutes. The first part is just crazy. They're like using a battering ram to ram through the door of a student. The guy barges in holding a gun, hands up. At least you could hear one of the students saying no search warrant shown. From what I could tell, there was search warrants, but they clearly didn't show it to the students. And then you basically have the FBI and cops outside the home just taking cartons of paint and like folders that you could get at Staples. You know, it's just absolutely insane, absolutely over the top, fascist. And this is from Democrats. So we got two sides of the coin. I also want to show, because we have a lot of, we've, you know, grown in subscribers. A lot of people might not know that Status Coup has led, capital L, led coverage of the pro-Palestine protests. When I say Status Coup, I should specify John Farina, our cameraman, has covered over 100. Let me repeat, over 100. Ashley, since she's been with Status Coup, has covered a few too. We have been out there basically almost for 2 years. We've covered these protests in New York City, in Washington, D.C., outside the DNC, in Chicago. Tina's covered it for us in L.A. We've covered, you know, protests in the streets. We've covered student encampments. We've covered protests against Palestinian land being auctioned off, basically by Zionists, and we've continued covering it, frankly, even when the views have gone down. Because obviously, with YouTube, once something is no longer breaking, you know, the views go down. But we've continued covering it because we think it's important that it's still going on, and we don't want these people out there with no cameras and no microphones. So we've covered it, frankly, at a financial loss to ourselves, because when we cover it now, it just doesn't do as well. But that's what Status Coup is about. We're not only going to cover things for the clicks and to, you know, get money. We're going to cover things because we think it's the right thing to do. So with that, we're asking you, which is in good timing because we have our members call tonight. We're really asking you, if you can, to support us because we want to continue covering these protests and continue breaking these types of stories. We're going to play some of this video. We won't play the whole thing, but stick around. Here's a bit of a montage of some of our coverage. Hey there, it's Jordan with Status Coup, and I'm here with a sincere request to all those who oppose the barbaric, inhumane, evil Israeli genocide of Palestinians in Gaza that has been going on for 18 months and sadly does not seem to have an end in sight. For those of you that don't know about Status Coup, we are an independent investigative news outlet that covers stories on the ground, in the trenches, that the corporate media covers up. We have covered over 100, let me repeat, over 100 ceasefire protests against this genocide. Our cameraman, John Farina, has covered protests in New York City, D.C., Chicago, outside the Democratic National Convention. We've covered protests in Los Angeles. We've covered ceasefire protests. We've covered student encampments. We've covered protests against the illegal sale of Palestinian land. We've been out there in the cold, in the heat, morning, noon, late night, midnight, because we do not believe U.S.-funded genocide should be normalized. We want to continue covering this critical story that the corporate media wants to cover up, but it is expensive and it requires us to expand. And we will not take money from the very corporations that support and fund this type of genocide. That's why we ask you to support us. You could support us as a paying member for as low as $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join, or you could donate any amount, small or big, to support this investigative on-the-ground journalism. Now let me show you just some of our reporting from the last 18 months.
Marching here on the streets of New York City while a genocide is going on in Gaza. Innocent men, women and children are being collectively punished, and unfortunately so many others, besides the thousands murdered, so many others are starved to death. This is something that humanity should never allow. As human beings, we stand up and we join so many other people here in New York City and the world over, and we condemn this genocide. The genocide has to stop in its entirety.
Since the horrors of October 7th, Status Coup's John Farina has led all journalists covering protests all across America, in New York City, in Washington, D.C., in Chicago, Illinois. We've also covered protests in Los Angeles. From ceasefire now protests to student encampments to protests outside the Democratic National Convention, Status Coup has led the way covering what the mainstream media covers up.
The Zionist lobby is strong in America. The Zionist lobby is really strong in America, and if you're an American that cares about the United States of America, you would be worried. Why is Israel the only country on planet Earth that the United States of America unconditionally supports? I challenge one person, one pundit, one Israeli Knesset member, one U.S. congressman or woman to find another country that we unconditionally support. Why do we unconditionally support Israel?
That video is about 10 minutes, so I didn't want to play the whole thing. We will post it separately. God bless Colin Tooley, who edited that behind the scenes. And God bless John Farina, who's been out there. The warrior he is deserves several awards, including for his work on January 6th. He got that historic footage of the cop's head rammed into the door. So this is thankless work, and the people who do it don't quite have the following of, some others, questionably intelligent, questionably warriors like Joe Rogan. So we don't get the accolades or the listeners or following that those people get. But I would dare to say our work is equally, if not way more important, because we're out there on the ground. And how much of this would people really see or even know is happening or still happening if there wasn't a camera crew or journalist out there? And to be clear, this is not, and Ashley, you've only been here a short while, but I think you're starting to see it. I'm not saying this out of cockiness. I'm saying it because it's true. We're most often the only camera crew out there, other than like documentary filmmakers or like just random live streamers. Not that they don't matter, but I'm talking about in terms of like national media with a fairly big following. We're generally the only outlets at these protests, not just pro-Palestinian protests, but climate protests. Ashley, you were out Saturday covering the protest against Trump's illegal deportations. I don't know, 15, 20,000 people. How many other camera crews were there?
Oh, I mean, none. I to be fair, I did see at least one other person, with a camera, but I don't think they were not like MSNBC, they were not CNN, they were not Fox News, they were not corporate media that is supposed to be bringing people news and covering these kind of things. There's pretty much no one, and for the few weeks that John and I have been out together, it's usually just us.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear so people understand, because I could sound like a broken record. We got mouths to feed to do this. I mean, I got to pay John to go out there as much as he does. Happy to do it. How we go live, I don't want to get into the technical aspect. Just to be live using our broadcasting unit, it costs us over $11,000 a year. And it keeps going up, which is a sore subject. So just the broadcasting unit called LiveView, it costs us over 10 grand a year. Obviously, we just brought Ashley on. We got to pay her to eat and have a living wage. Colin has been with us since the beginning. We just, the members will get more details, but we just gave him a well-deserved bump. We got to pay Tina when she's out there and her cameraman. Zaina when she does work. I mean, there's so many costs to this. And frankly, we are doing the work that normally you'd have 5 or 6 people out at a protest. So like most CNN, if they're covering a protest like the one we just showed you, it's not just like Ashley and a cameraman. It's multiple people. You got a producer there. You got probably security, frankly. When we're out on the ground for a longer trip, we have 2 people when other outlets probably have 4 or 5. We are very, very understaffed. And I know it's hard because our, what would you say, our target market, i.e. people that can support us, are working class people who in many cases don't have the extra money. So if you don't have, $5 a month to support us, no problem. Totally understand. And just support us however you can, whether it's liking, commenting, sharing. But I'm going to say this directly. There's a whole lot of outlets begging you for money, and they ain't doing anything revolutionary. They're sitting in a studio, bloviating out of their assholes. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. But I am not ashamed to say, if you only have $5 to $10 a month to dedicate to an independent outlet, I'm going to ask you to give it to us. Not that those other outlets aren't unique, not that they don't add anything, but there is a much, much, much higher overhead to having reporters, having to afford camera people, having to afford equipment, having to pay for travel, which includes, I'll give you a perfect example right now, totally showing you the behind the scenes. We probably got to get a used car because typically when John and I go on the ground, we use my car. But now that Ashley is here, if Ashley and John go out on the ground, God bless them. I can't give them my car. I have a kid, a wife. So John has a car that is almost 20 years old and is on its last legs. Ashley lives in New York and doesn't have a car. So we got to get a car because renting cars each time is financially, it'll kill you if you have to rent a car for each trip, even a day trip they take somewhere. So we got to get a used car. Well, a good used car that will get you from point A, or in our case, sometimes we drive through 3 or 4 states in 10 days. That's going to cost us 10 to 15 grand. So there's a lot of costs associated with this that you don't know about. And I don't send out fundraising emails every day. Some outlets do. I try not to send out fundraising emails every day because I find it annoying just as a person to constantly get fundraising. But we're going to have to start hammering you with fundraising emails because I don't print money out of my backyard. Our funding comes from you. So at the end of the day, I was only able to really hire Ashley because we grew over the last 6 or 7 months. We grew 240,000 YouTube subscribers. We grew about 1,000 paid members. That was able to get us like over the hump to hire a full-time person, which includes, benefits, everything. So I could have sold that a long time ago. Ashley, when we meet in person, I'll tell you about the devious person involved with the Democratic Party. I never told the audience, but I had an offer.
I'm intrigued.
I had an offer a couple years ago for a hefty amount of money from a Democratic Party sycophant. And it was for enough money that we could hire quite a lot of people. But besides, I didn't want to get in bed with somebody from the Democratic Party. This person would not put in writing that I would maintain editorial control. So I said no. And I'm not going to lie, that was hard to say no because it would have been for like minimum $600,000, which you could hire a lot of people with $600,000. And I would have not had to work 6-7 days a week like I've been doing. But I turned it down. I think it was the right decision, but it's much harder to do this. When I say this, I'm talking about I've been to Flint 21 times. Status Coup has been to East Palestine 8 times. We've been all over this country. We've covered over 100 pro-Palestine protests. Even when we're not on the ground, we're covering stuff. Other people, we're not on the ground right now. Ashley broke this story today of the SEAL Team 6 barge ramming into, the doors. I didn't take $20 million from Jeffrey Katzenberg, like another outlet that I won't name, Young Turks. So, it's up to you. If you want this kind of on the ground investigative reporting, I do not think, again, for those that genuinely you can't even do $5 a month, you just don't have it, fine. But for those that do, $5 a month is 16 cents a day. That's what it breaks down to. We also have $10 a month. That's 33 cents a day. I'm going to venture to guess for those that could afford it. I think you spend $5 a month. I think you probably spend $5 a day on something you probably don't need.
A cup of coffee is $5 in New York City. Just a regular old drip coffee is $5. So if you go out and buy coffee even once a month, maybe, that $5 can go to Status Coup instead. Right. And then John and I can go on the ground. We can go do all kinds of on the ground reporting. I think that would be $5 well spent.
Exactly.
If I'm, giving my 2 cents.
Before my wife kills me, because I have to go take care of my kid, please sign up. Again, 7:30 Eastern tonight is our monthly members call. It's through a program similar to Zoom. You don't have to be on camera, by the way. So if you're wanting to join for this call, once you join, you could mute your camera and just listen if you want. If you want to be on camera, you can. If you don't want to verbally ask a question, you could write in the chat. We usually go hour and a half, 2 hours. Tonight, probably going to shut it down hour and a half because I'm tired and I got some other things going on. But it's always a lot of fun. It'll be Ashley's first call, so you could ask Ashley all you want. I might have some TMI, some behind the scenes announcements for members that the public wouldn't know. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Colin already told you how to get the link. Colin could come on one more time before we go to tell you. And if you don't get the link for whatever reason, or you're having troubles, just email info@statuscoup.com and Colin will troubleshoot it for you so you could get on the call. Lastly, go to Substack, read, share Ashley's great reporting on this horrible story of, it's not only Trump emboldening fascism. It is Democrats like Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. We will see you in 7:30 Eastern time. Let me read super chats and shout out any new members. Tony D, member for 37 months. I wish cloning was real so we could clone Jordan and have 6 reporters as great as him. I love the addition of Ashley, though I miss Tina. Thank you. What do you mean you miss Tina? Tina, she just did 2 rallies for us. Tina's still around. But Tina's very funny. Philip gifted 1 membership. Thank you, Philip. Joseph gifted 10 YouTube memberships. Joseph, thank you. Very generous. And how that works, I think, is random people in the YouTube chat will get like a membership. And if you are a YouTube member, you could then join our members call tonight, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Also on our website, shout out to new members, Anthony and Milton, and you could sign up all the way to 7:30 Eastern. Thank you for watching. We got some other stories I wanted to cover, but I got to go take care of my kid. We will see you at 7:30. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.